itself. So we will evaluate the design, the cost effectiveness, and the functionality to know the potential impact of this on our targeted community. Then our key mediating variables, the quality of the solar water heater design, the cost of used materials, and the frequency of use interact to affect the system's overall efficiency and functionality. They also influence the dependent variables, the mean daily peak temperature, payback period for implementation, and resident perceptions, which we will analyze in order to know whether the system meets the practical needs of the community. Then our confounding variable, the level of sunlight, affects how well the solar water heater performs. So we need to take it into account to ensure that we have accurate results.
Check your mic.
Study uses explanatory support calculus and test design. Qualitative data will be used to explain data from the will use to explain findings from the quantitative data. For quantitative data, a thermometer will be used to measure the hourly water temperature, and then we have the highest temperatures of the previous testing will be calculated. Payback period will also be calculated as well. For qualitative data, 3.5 million semi-structured reviews will be conducted to elicit detailed resident perceptions of the solar water.
Since our review is semi-structured,
Participants in the study were from urban poor households in Manila City, who are part of the lower socioeconomic class. 1 million female residents aged 18 to 60 years were included to ensure a variety of perspectives. Lastly, we made sure to select respondents willing to take part in the study, and then to ensure that they conflict with genuine and effective true experiences. Non-random sampling was used in the study, specifically purposive and convenient sampling. Participants had to meet the following criteria. They had to be part of the household from the urban poor community in Baguio City and to deliver from a low-cost solar water heater. Convenient sampling was used to select participants that were readily available and willing to participate in the study. 2 households were included to receive the solar water heater, as we decided to focus more on the practicality and the detailed insights rather than the generalizability of the data.
our semi-structured interview, we originally drafted 7 questions for our semi-structured interview. These 7 questions were then sorted into 3 sections, being the access and needs for hot water, the health benefits of solar water heating systems, and the feedback and convenience of the people using them. As for the lab equipment, we utilized a Pasco CI66058 stainless steel temperature sensor with a 0.05 degrees Celsius margin of error. And for the construction of the system itself, there are 3 parts of it: the circulation system, the hot water, the heat absorber / collector, and the storage. The circulation system consists of the solar panel, the small solar charge controller, the battery, the water pump, and the hose. The heat absorber / collector is made up of the corrugated galvanized roof plate and copper coils, and the storage is made up of the water drum. As for the procedure, we obtained the materials via 2 methods. Either we bought them online or we recycled or repurposed certain materials. Now for the step-by-step procedure of the assembly, we first bent the coils to shape and combined them. The 2 ends of the combined coils were then attached to 2 separate hoses. One hose has the pump and is the inlet, and the other end is also attached to the hose and is the outlet. And afterwards, we secure the coils to the roof plate, which is then placed on top of the water drum, and the hoses are inserted into the drum. To obtain our quantitative data, we recorded the temperature of the water every hour, and to do this, we use the thermometer mentioned previously. Meanwhile, for the qualitative data, we use the semi-structured interview from before.
Sorry, group 7, time is officially up. Dear panelists, we now have 5 minutes to ask the questions. Our time travel is still 2 minutes. the 5 minutes ago. Actually, no. Sorry, around those 2 the 5 minutes after.
So first of all, I think this is a very relevant topic, especially for this time that happened. But I just wanted to ask you something that you mentioned previously. So you did mention that 40% of households use electricity. Where's the complication?
It's in a different country po. So the study where we found the literature was so parang onti lang po sa Philippines. So we mostly base our study on the Philippines.
Pero are you sure that this 40% is what's happening? So you did not. This is really bad.
So can you please repeat the question?
Okay, so you did mention that 40% figure of using electricity for heating comes from a different country. But how do you know that?
Based on our RNA, we collected studies that were mostly pulled in temperature.
How cold?
We weren't able to find.
Okay, I have nothing against using the other countries, but it would be nice to do just a suggestion. Baguio has a certain climate classification. What if you find data from another comparable city with the same kind of climate, the same kind of what you call this typical temperatures? And maybe that might be comparable. But obviously there are other factors that affect this, such as economic or financial strength of the city. So baka mamaya the city that you're talking about has a better quality of life compared to Baguio. So that might also be a factor. Okay. So I guess that is why you will also conduct a survey this time. Is that right? So maybe it would be nice to just clarify this, especially because I'm not sure if it's the right thing to put. You're claiming 40% and yet it's not really applicable to the city that you are using because you're still going to gather data. Okay, I just have one last question. So this is solar water heating, right? You use a solar panel to drive a heater. Okay? I saw solar panels in your schematics, so what's the...
Use a solar panel to drive a pump.
Okay, so you use the solar panel to drive a pump, which...
Yeah. So basically, how it works is that we have a solar panel which then generates electricity, which goes towards the charge controller, and then the controller sends it towards the pump. The excess electricity that was made by the solar panel, it was sent to the battery to charge it. But normally the electricity from the solar panel goes straight to the pump. But in the case that there's no sun to power the solar there's no sun for energy to be generated, then the battery itself will power the pump.
Okay, sige. So why not just use the solar panel to affect the electrical cost of the house? Kasi baka doing that alone, if this solar panel directly powers your electrical needs of the house, baka that will reduce the electricity that you're made to, di ba?
Because one of our goals is to just make a solar water, like it's specifically for heating water. So that, because our system, it could be used as a standalone thing. If we can scale it up, it can be just used in a bigger water tank and it can just heat up a big tank of water for many people to share and use.
Yeah, but you can use the solar panel equally to heat a traditional heater using electricity and everything. So why do you have to go to a solar heater?
For cost effectiveness.
How sure are you about the cost effectiveness?
We will calculate the payback period in order to know the cost effectiveness. Also, we already calculated the estimated cost of every material, and we reached an estimation of 4,000 to 5,000 pesos. That's also including the repurposed waste materials, the source materials from the waste and the recycled materials.
Okay. According to some research we did also, normal water heaters are normally around 7,000 pesos.
Okay, so maybe that's something you could also check in your in your paper. There might be an analysis here if the solar water heater is really the most cost effective versus just simply solar panel powering traditional heaters or a solar panel just reducing the electrical cost of the house. Okay?
Do you have any point of comparison for your saying that? For example, yes, you're using your own water heater, but do you have a point of comparison to say that let's say it's better or functions more efficiently compared to say a standard like commercially available?
We have found some research papers of steam solar water heaters and also other traditional water heaters which use the peak temperature as measurement of the effectiveness of the solar water heater. The only difference, or the significant difference of our solar water heater is the use of solar charge controller and the battery. So in our hypothesis, we will put there na integrating those will increase the efficiency. And therefore, if we compare it to other studies, which I have mentioned, we will be able to compare and see if it's really more efficient.
I think I saw here in your methodology that you're going to be reviewing, or you're going to be giving the water heaters to families in Baguio. Maybe one thing that you could do is, well, it's an interview. If ever maybe you could like find others who might be willing to take it in and use that as a point of comparison. Maybe you can find somebody who already has a commercial water heater, and then you can use that, you can include them in your data to say that in terms of the data that you collect, you can ask questions related to whether or not it's better, or use some advantages or disadvantages of commercial versus your own. But other than that, you don't have
By the way, good job on this one. I like how organized this is and also how some labels are highlighted.
Thank you, sir.
Can you put the GM for the letters?
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Group 7, for the presentation. Now we will be having Group 1 for us. Vito Angeles, Han Balthazar, AJ Marwan, and Rafi Patrick.
No po. Pinapalabas. 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 Kailan pa mo? the timer also.
Ay, napapagod naman ako. Nakapagod ako sa taon. Gusto ko pa pumagitin pa rin ako. Pero nakakain ka. Stress na nag-email. Ano gagawin ko? Ayoko na!
Good morning, everyone. We are Group 1. My name is Vito Ángeles, and our research is titled Food Insecurity and Financial Struggles with Binge Eating Disorders and Drugs for adolescents aged 13 to 18 in rural areas and low-income households. Now, the Philippine social reality that we wish to address is that a lot of adolescents in our country suffer from lack of nutrition. 1 in 10 adolescents in our country are obese due to wrong eating habits. Adolescent obesity in our country has tripled in the last 15 years. And this first address the gaps in research. Our investigation was to explore how gender, ethnicity, religion, and family dynamics contribute to these disorders. Although these factors broaden our understanding or truly access to our data, we lack the necessary resources to specify our responding criteria. Secondly, our investigation lacks exploration on psychosocial factors beyond financial struggles. This is also due to research. Now, our research question is, what are the experiences of 13 to 18-year-old teenagers on coping mechanisms of eating disorders, the knowledge of people in rural communities, correlation between insecurity and eating disorders, and government efforts in relation to eating disorders. This research question is important as it highlights under-researched areas. It identifies helpful or harmful strategies students use to manage eating, examines cultural factors shaping eating behaviors in rural communities or low-income areas, explores how limited access to food is to affect patterns, and also highlights policy gaps and suggests support for rural communities. Now let's move on to our review of the review. Our RFL focuses on 4 main topics: rural community mantra, food equity, association with food security and community discovery, coping mechanisms for food, and government efforts. Rural food norms are shaped by limited options to nutritious items or foods and food insecurity. Families rely on expensive local markets due to poverty and lack of transport, while natural disasters damages crops and reduces food supply, worsening food insecurity. Farming challenges like land ownership issues increase financial instability, and studies have shown that cultural practices has preference for based on nutrition, which creates barriers to competition. These in turn increases vulnerability to binge eating disorders. Food insecurity is linked to binge eating disorder due to stress caused by poverty and lack of food, and causes overcoming food insecurity. The stigma behind food insecurity causes individuals to hyper-eating disorders, leading to unhealthy food. This makes food insecurity individuals face excessive eating and eating anxiety. The next is coping mechanisms in binge eating disorders. Now, the first one is healthy eating habits. Consistent meals, healthy diet options, and no food restrictions are perfect eating habits to mitigate binge eating disorder symptoms. Next is physical activity. Sports, yoga, or any hobbies that can reduce your stress level can go a long way in preventing binge eating disorder symptoms from happening. And if all else fails, psychological treatments such as CBT and PWT are effective treatments in helping with emotional triggers. And lastly, government efforts in eating disorders and healthy eating. Government efforts include Department of Education, school-based eating programs, and other nutrition development programs for young children, these programs focuses on reducing malnutrition for young children by providing healthier options for everyone around the country. And lastly, eating disorder awareness, prevention, and education act is an act to raise awareness of eating disorders to treat students and young people who have these disorders. Our hypothesis is adolescents from low-income families in rural areas are susceptible even to eating disorder symptoms.
Given that, here is a brief explanation on our necessity. As you can see, rural areas are susceptible to food insecurity brought about by financial struggles, lack of nutrition, as well as poverty and language inequalities. All these variables affect the rural area. Now, as adolescents experience food insecurity, they may feel stress or stigma, and this may lead to the development of negative coping mechanisms such as the family cycle, and this may lead to the development of binge eating disorders. Moving on to the methodology of our study. Our study uses primarily phenomenological research design. Data collection involves a structured frequency survey, which will be used as a screening tool and will be followed by semi-structured videos. Respondents will include adolescents aged 13 to 24 years old from low-income rural areas of Manila and will earn less than 9,000 to 18,500 pesos per month. Our respondents will not include those with appetite-altering medications and illnesses, intentional dietary changes, as well as controlled recovery. Additionally, our participants will be screened further for those who reach Moreover, our lead researchers will be using the snowballing sampling method, which involves sharing a Google survey link to personal connections, as well as the propulsive sampling, which narrows down the respondents to those within personal connections. Lastly, semi-structured will be used to be conducted with select participants until they can take the saturation to
Moving on to our instrumentalities, first we have a survey that contains 15 questions. Questions in this survey contain questions about demographic information and questions derived from the questionnaire of eating and weight patterns, right? Which the group modified to fit more to food insecurity individuals. This survey includes dimensions such as food access and financial constraints, eating behaviors, emotional responses to eating, household and social contracts, food scarcity and coping mechanisms, and finally, government interventions. For our procedure, as we mentioned previously, we have local sampling, and our data, we will then analyze our data based on the frequency of yes and always responses in our survey. This data will then be stored in a Google Sheets for sorting and privacy. Participants who were then willing to discuss further were screened and were then scheduled for an interview. This interview would be conducted over Google Meet and will take 20 to 30 minutes. And follow-up questions that were asked in the interview would be based on the responses of the respondents in the survey. For data analysis, we use a mixed method analysis, which involves quantitative and thematic analysis. For our measurable variables, we have levels of food insecurity, financial struggle, and frequency of EEP symptoms, and the DSM-5 criteria, which we use as previously mentioned, yes, sometimes, and always responses. At least 60% of the questions in the survey must test positive for this criteria for the interview to push through. Next, we have the qualitative or thematic analysis, which we will use Darwin Broad's thematic analysis. Well,
Sorry, one of your time is now up. We will now be having our panelists ask questions. This panel will be open to begin and 5 minutes starts.
Okay, so I just wanted to begin with just some general comments regarding your presentation. One thing I noticed, especially with your presentation, is it's very clear, it's very digestible. I can get all the information just from the site. And so I think if ever your presentation is, I think you can maintain the current format where it's private and if ever you need to divide information across several slides, that's also okay. That way it's more readable. My main question is, how will you, have you considered the effect of how they have a gadget on your data? For example, you're going to be doing interviews, if I'm not mistaken, by Google Meet, and then you're also going to be asking them to use, or to answer Google Forms, a Google Forms survey. But how are you sure that they have a gadget that they can access these ways of interviewing or answering forms? Especially since you said that they are from low income families. So perhaps maybe not all of them have the means to access these interviews or surveys.
If I may answer, we aim to address this through the initial screening survey, which will also be conducted through Google Forms and has questions related to demographic information, such as, like previously mentioned, the income and the income, and as you mentioned, sir, the presence of a gadget. So we hope that we would be able to screen respondents that aren't able to answer the interview through the survey.
Okay. But don't you feel that by limiting your respondents to only those candidates, don't you feel that it limits the data set you're gathering? I'm just basing it off your head from low income households in rural areas in Canada. So shouldn't it try to encompass as many of these adolescents that fit this description? I would suggest, maybe try to find through your research gaps, trying to do that, or perhaps try to find other alternative means of surveying your respondents such that it can be as accurate.
If I may add, I'm from Tarlac, so every month I go home. So we can also add that going home to Tarlac, we can host face-to-face interviews with our respondents.
That might be better. It might be a bit like difficult when you actually do it. Like for example, you have to go home once a month. But maybe if you need the help of your group, you're always have to go to Tarlac. So it might be a bit difficult, but if that's something that your group can handle, I don't see any problems. So I think in that manner, it is more accurate. You're going to get more versatile, or a more diverse set of data sets instead of just those made.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I just have a few first thing is, why did you choose this age group in particular, in 13 to 16?
These are the stage other lessons for learn like develop difficult issues and just encompasses the previous topics. That's why we choose this.
Okay, so you have data on that, right? But if you actually look at some of the data that I just checked, the younger children actually have a higher percentage of overweight, obesity, and all of that. Okay, so that's one thing. It significantly goes down in your age group, but I guess because of the higher mental health that you mentioned, mental health related issues, then that's why it can also be an important factor. Okay, so maybe you could also work on that. Maybe you could also check that percentage. Okay, and I understand you chosen Tarlac because you come from Tarlac, but did you also check like statistics on how Tarlac compares to the rest of the country in terms of these kinds of issues?
Rural communities in Tarlac have a similar population to the rest of the country. So and similar conditions as well. So it's not like it's a very it's not like the weather conditions there are way too different from other portions of the country, and it is accessible to both. Since it's near the seaside, we also get transportation from the seafood. And so Tarlac also has a lot of factors as well that can make it a suitable.
So three things lang with what you said. So first, similar conditions. So you're saying that exactly similar Tarlac and let's say Metro Manila or Metro Cebu. There's a difference there. Similar climate. Tarlac, new. So there might be a difference there. And seaside, Tarlac is a province that's completely landlocked. So, so why Tarlac? Is there any other justification for Tarlac as a completely? Okay, so actually, I also took a look at some statistics. So according to this, the overweight rate in Tarlac is 23%. Okay, so that's in Tarlac. And if you compare that to the rest of the country, it's actually the highest that you can see is in Malabon. Okay, so Malabon yung pinamataas at near 50% overweight. Okay, Tarlac is actually, if that is we're going to stick with that data, Tarlac would actually find itself in the bottom half of the Philippine provinces in terms of overweight and obesity prevalence. So given that, is there, what do you think is the better justification for why Tarlac is chosen?
It's mostly important.
Okay, so mostly for convenience, okay? So maybe you could gather a little bit data about Tarlac. So more about income class as one. If you mentioned climate, and then also how many percent ng population right now has that kind of condition or has that kind of an issue, and that maybe that could help justify it. Okay.
Thank you, dear panelists, for asking your questions, and thank you everyone for presenting. Round of applause. We will now be moving on to the next group, Group 5, which consists of Realino, Manila, Majorem, and teaching content.
Oh no. Cut that.
Sure. Okay. Sorry.
Good, beautiful day, everybody, especially to the panelists, our beloved advisor, Ms. Lee, and of course to the audience attending today's on-site presentation. Before we formally begin, may we first introduce ourselves. I am Keisha Samson. Marcos Gananaji. And I am Julio Ayala. And today, we are understanding the motivations behind the practice of folk medicine in treating common illnesses in Quiapo. Slide, please.
The Philippines is known for its difficult access to healthcare. Following the COVID pandemic, over 50% of Filipinos face barriers to accessing basic and modern healthcare. And due to the high cost of medical treatment and facilities, many view folk medicine as an accessible alternative, something that they can afford, because primary healthcare is often reserved for those who have the opportunity to have it due to their economic status. Next slide, please.
Our main research mainly focuses on 3 topics, and it stems from these. The history of folk medicine practitioners here in the Philippines are first historically present in the Spanish colonization era, wherein Catholicism and Western medicine were first introduced, such as orasyon and herbal medicines, which first helped treat diarrhea causes. Next is that community involvement was first present as well as an anthropological factor to our research. It helps build trust with the community and the leaders themselves. And interconnected with cultural beliefs, it helps the perceptions of each individual to perceptualize their research. And next, becoming a folk healer is rather complex. Therefore, there are only 3 topics, such as economic, cultural, and spiritual beliefs. But what makes our research truly relevant? Next slide, please.
Our research gaps focus on 3 main core elements. Number 1, the underexplored personal motivations of healers. Generational transmission of knowledge and the impacts of modernization. Underexplored personal motivations is important because most research about folk medicine in the Philippines focuses on the patients or the buyers of the products, as opposed to the actual motivations of the people practicing and selling. Next slide. Our conceptual framework is composed of 3 main inputs. So cultural beliefs, economic factors, and spiritual influences. These all are able to affect one another and work together to affect intervention of folk healers. For example, how they build trust among their communities and how they keep their practices accessible and affordable. Now these are affected by 2 external factors: knowledge preservation and the community involvement. These affecting the intervention of folk healers affects these 2: community health impact and the motivations that drive healers to persist and continue the practice of traditional medicine. Community health impact is important as cultural preservation and healthcare access are one of the driving factors in accessible healthcare. And motivations that drive folk healers to persist and continue the practice of folk medicine is our main topic.
So by focusing on the folk healers currently practicing traditional medicine in Quiapo, our focus zeroes in on the broader cultural motivations behind these practices, the transmission of generational knowledge, the similarities between the beliefs and motivations among the healers, and of course, examining how folk healers influence the community. Excellent. Given this, the aim of our study is to understand the fundamental motivations behind the continued practice of folk medicine and the effects of these factors have on the communities they serve. So we ask the questions: what does the past culture and beliefs influence the practice today? What anthropological factors affect the practice and influence the communities they live in? And finally, how does traditional medicine persist in a modern medicine-dominant society? These 3 questions warrant the main question that we have, which is, sorry. What are the primary motivations that drive folk healers to continue their practice of traditional medicine, and how do these motivations impact the communities they serve?
For this study, we aim to dig deeper into why folk healers thrive, even when modern healthcare is just around the corner. This brings us to our appropriate qualitative research design, which is ethnography, meaning we have to immerse ourselves in the lives of campus folk healers. With this, we plan to spend weekends in February 2025 engaging with them through informal conversations, observing their daily routines, and experiencing their practice beforehand. Next slide. Next is one of the keystones of our research, our criteria. So this is where we most likely select our research. So the criteria are the following. Participants are aged at least 25 years old to ensure that they have enough insights and life experience to provide us with meaningful experience. Next is that these people have to have at least 5 years of active practice and to have been part of their community for the same period. This is to ensure sufficient exposure and provide researchers with richer insights from knowledgeable participants. Next is our sampling method. Sorry, I forgot. While socioeconomic status and gender aren't the primary focus, these additional criteria will be noted to ensure that we capture the full complexity of the reasons for continuing folk medicine in today's world. For our sampling, we have chosen purposive sampling to ensure that we handpick individuals, our handpicked individuals have deep first-hand knowledge that fills our criteria to the left. We plan to conduct interviews with roughly 10 folk healers, roughly meaning not exactly 10, as we are planning to closely monitor them, the data for data saturation to ensure that we are gathering rich, diverse perspectives without unnecessary repetition. Plus, the goal was never to gather the most data, but to gather the right data, giving us a comprehensive understanding of the motivations and later, giving us a comprehensive understanding of the motivations and social factors that sustain folk healers capital. Next slide, please. For our questionnaire, we plan to develop a refined questionnaire inspired by previous studies to explore folk healers' beliefs, motivations, and experiences. The questionnaire is split into 2 parts. Demographics, which include age, gender, occupations, and the other basics. And thematic questions that dive deeper into traditions, mental health beliefs, and emotional support. So understanding Quiapo's folk healing practices required a thoughtful, flexible tool to help participants feel comfortable and build trust. So we researchers know that this is a big concern. That's why we chose to apply a semi-structured format for our interviews, remaining flexible to them while sticking to our original goals, which turns the interview almost more like a conversation, creating a comfortable space for healers to share openly.
As for the procedure, we plan to begin our environmental scan at Plaza Miranda, behind Quiapo Church, and approach the potential participants, explain to them the purpose of the study, and obtain consent. And then our interviews will last for around 45 to 60 minutes using a semi-structured interview format. Most importantly, we will audio record our interviews and transcribe our notes and organize collected data into a Google Sheet. More importantly, we will apply both thematic and narrative analyses in order to be able to identify key thematic aspects such as their culture and spirituality, and their narrative analyses, which contextualizes their experiences into their purpose. Lastly, our ethics script. We will submit the proposal to the University Research Ethics ethics board, and along with confidentiality and anonymity, secure the data and delete it as is, and
Sorry, wait,
Thank you.
Panelists, you may ask your questions now first.
Okay, so thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you for the presentation. I do appreciate the slides. Also, very konti lang words, okay? You relied heavily on keywords and lots of arrows, and I think a lot of people could use your slides as an example of how to use it to guide you rather than to dominate the presentation. So well done. Also, good in the presentation, generally confidently presenting for all presenters. Very good. So my main question first, when you do your interviews with these folk leaders, are you going to take a look at other things such as their educational attainment, their religious background, what prophets they talk about, etc.?
It was part of our conceptual framework that we will also delve into the spiritual influences and the community involvement. And since these folk leaders are from the communities themselves, they can also share their personal backgrounds. And in the questionnaire, we also have a demographic interviewee, which will also have the age, etc., the personalities, and the thematics questions, wherein it is mostly job-based questions. And in the demographics, I think it also has the educational background, so it's also included in it.
Yeah, good that you mentioned that. I'm trying to look for related studies on this one. The one that I saw, they also took note of religious beliefs. So when they interviewed yung mga folk healers, they saw some are Catholic, some are Muslim, some are even agnostic or atheist. So I think it would be nice if you take a look at that as well. Then second, you have province as well. So baka naman there are other factors that they have. They come from a certain province wherein definitely mas malapit yung influence of tribe or something. So I think it would be nice to take note of those two particular things, yung religious as well as yung what we call this yung home province. Okay? And this one, just to clarify, this is mainly focused on the folk leaders' motivations, but not really on perceptions of people on what they do.
For perceptions, there have been, most of the studies that have been conducted about folk leader practices are already about that. Because most of them focus, again, on the people that buy them, why they buy them, as opposed to the folk leader's motivations. So instead of looking at it from that angle that we're buying this product because of this and that, we're trying to understand, as you said earlier, like deeper influences as opposed to just the people that buy them. So this is that, but in another lens, where it's like from another lens.
Okay, so did you mention that in your previous slides? What are these perceptions that people currently have of this? So you said that there are lots of related studies.
I'm not sure if it's in the slides here, but there is a phenomenological study, I feel like you found it, about Java as well. That one focuses on the perceptions of people on folk leaders and
You could also put that into your presentation just to make it more well-rounded. This is important because people have this perception of folk leaders. Even if there are more, other more contemporary means of medication, a lot of people still subscribe to this kind of practice. So it would be good to also emphasize it more.
But maybe to add to Sir Arias' points, have you considered like what kinds of illnesses the folk healers treat? For example, I think this is more under perception. but maybe some people want to approach a folklore because they have a cold or they have a flu. But what exactly do we mean by common illnesses? Does it include like colds, flus, even COVID? Because you can consider that as a common illness.
We didn't really specify on what illnesses were to be on our research, since people tend to go to folk healers because of many various reasons. It can be maybe complex or common, but we decided to make it more, I guess, for the audience to understand it more, so we chose to do common illnesses.
Because I think again, perception might play a big role here. It might be worth it to discuss or further elaborate on the perceptions of folk healers, because people might approach them for common illnesses or like low-level illnesses, but maybe not for serious illnesses. That's something that I think we're being further discuss. But in terms of other comments, I think you were very detailed in terms of the overall flow. I do follow Sir Arias' sentiments regarding the presentation. It's really more of like a set of cues, and then the presentation comes from you yourself. So I commend you for that. Additional aspects, why exactly Quiapo? Why did you choose Quiapo?
We chose Quiapo specifically is because it's mostly, folk healers are mostly of it's home to folk healers basically, and it's more convenient for us. It's really near, and it's every weekend, like every weekend in February, so it's really convenient for us.
Apart from convenience, we also chose Quiapo because we believe it is one of the places in Manila that houses one of the biggest communities of folk healers. So we would like to focus on that location more because of the diversity and the amount of samples we could get regarding the information we're trying to receive.
For example, the location being Plaza Miranda being located behind Quiapo Church plays a big part in that, because Quiapo has a rich history of herbal medicine. They have fortune tellers, they have all of these faith healers type of things. And so by focusing on Plaza Miranda, which has a rich history already of folk-related healing, it's not for convenience, we're delving into the rich culture of Quiapo as a whole.
To add lang po, for personal context, Quiapo was also home to my mom, and she was also partaking into folk medicine as well, and that's how my brother was also dealt with his illness before. So it's also personal for me.
We will now go on a 5-minute break for now. have here is the two proposals of Miguel Ateneo, Gabriel Francisco, and Realino. Your 10 minutes start now.
Good morning to our esteemed panelists, research advisor, and valued classmates. My name is Realino, and I am here alongside my colleagues,
Miguel Joaquin P. Apelano,
Pauline Mel Escopic.
and Junbi Jr. Nayawen.
We are here to present our study titled Cytotoxic and Apoptosis Induction Evaluation of SARS-CoV Annona muricata ethanolic leaf extract on MC7 breast cancer cells. Let us first begin with our Philippine social reality. Next slide, please.
The Philippine social reality presented in our research is breast cancer is the most common cancers among women worldwide, and that cancer is a leading cause of death here in the Philippines. Access to affordable and efficient treatment is a significant challenge, especially those cancer victims who live in poverty. First, because most cancer centers are located in urban areas, so those in rural communities have limited access to healthcare facilities and proper treatment. Second is that widely known cancer treatment such as chemotherapy damages both cancer cells and the healthy cells, therefore leading to its side effects.
Let us now move on to the research gap.
One major research gap in cancer treatment is the difficulty in finding efficient targeting medicine to eliminate cancer cells while also without harming healthy ones. Current therapies often lead to significant side effects, highlighting the need for innovative approaches to ensure minimal collateral damages.
Let us now move on to the research question.
Alright, so from that research gap, we came up with this research question. Given that SARS-CoV has a potential to be a chemotherapeutic agent, what is the percent inhibition and apoptosis induction of SARS-CoV ethanolic leaf extract on MCF7 breast cancer cells? So let's define some terms. First of all, SARS-CoV is actually guayabano. It's a plant or a fruit that Filipinos love to eat. Actually, Miguel is wearing one right now. And we will be utilizing the leaves because it's been proven that it's a potential chemotherapeutic agent, meaning it can be used as a medication for cancer cell treatment. So what we want to find out is what is the percent inhibition, the amount of suppression of the cancer cell growth, and the apoptosis induction, how it induces programmed cell death on the breast cancer cells. So basically, our research question is, how does it suppress the cancer cell growth, and how does it induce the programmed cell death on the cancer cells?
Now let us discuss the hypothesis.
So from that, we came up with this hypothesis. There is no significant effect of SARS-CoV ethanolic leaf extract on the percent inhibition and apoptosis induction of MCF7 breast cancer cells. Basically, this is a null hypothesis. We chose a null hypothesis because we want to find a testable relationship and comparison between the SARS-CoV and the breast cancer cells. So if there's no relationship, it means it won't suppress and it won't induce programmed cell death well.
Now let us move to the conceptual framework.
Our conceptual framework summarizes the relationship and the overall process of the variables in our research. First is the independent variable, or the SARS-CoV ethanolic leaf extract, that will then be extracted into the extract concentration, or our moderating variable, which will then be applied to our controlled variable, which is the MCF7 breast cancer cells, to see if there are changes in our dependent variable, which is the increase in cytotoxicity and apoptosis induction. From there, we can see the increase of dying cell populations, or apoptotic cell populations. And from there, we can conclude that there are potential medicinal properties for breast cancer treatment
of Moricata. Now let us move on to the review of related literature.
Now, let's talk about bioactive compounds. Ateneo Moricata, or SARSOP, contains terpenoids, phenolics, and alkaloids. According to Ismail et al. 2023, these compounds are effectively targeting in apoptosis induction and cell cycle arrest in MCF7 breast cancer cell line. Cytotoxic activity in these studies show that geographical influence on phytochemical composition is evident and needs standardization of methods. Now let's talk about how apoptosis is regulated in breast cancer. According to Lucatoli, it is described as a weighing scale between pro-apoptotic proteins such as DAX and anti-apoptotic proteins such as BCL2. Breast cancer dismisses apoptosis due to an overexpression of BCL2. However, Ateneo Moricata is able to disrupt this balance by reducing BCL2 levels while increasing DAX levels. This suggests that Ateneo Moricata is able to overcome the drug resistance and be a less toxic alternative to breast cancer therapy. Finally, we can talk about the annexin V assay and its critical role in the study of apoptosis. Worsley said that annexin V assays are able to distinguish early and late stages of apoptosis. This allows researchers to mimic tumor and microenvironments that optimizes for detection and better understanding for apoptosis.
Lastly, let us now move on to our methodology. So for our methodology, we adopted an experimental quantitative design for precise measurement and analysis of the extract cytotoxic and apoptosis-inducing effects. Our sample, Ateneo Moricata, or also known as sarsoup, is a herbal plant widely recognized for its medicinal properties. It has garnered significant attention for its phytochemical components and prospective anti-cancer markers. Now, we used a non-random sampling method, or more particularly, the purposive sampling method, to ensure uniformity in size and maturity, which is critical for consistent experimental outcomes. Furthermore, these are the equipment that we will be using during our laboratory experiment. Let us first start off with our incubator. We will use it to maintain optimal conditions for cell culture. Then during the MTT assay, we will be using microplate reader in order to measure absorbance and 96-well micro-type plate to handle the samples. And furthermore, we will be using the centrifuge in order to separate cell pellets during the annexin V assay. And then lastly, we will use flow cytometer to analyze the apoptosis induction of the cells. Next slide, please. Okay, and then the MTT assay. We will first verify our sarsoup in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and then we will extract our plant material. For the MTT assay, we will use it to evaluate the cytotoxic effects of Ateneo Moricata on MCF7 breast cancer cells. The cells will be cultured in case F12 medium supplemented with 10% fetal bovine serum and 1% antibiotic antimycotic solution. After receiving 8,000 cells per well in 96 well plates, the cells will be treated with serious dilutions of the ethanolic extract for 74 hours. And then next, we will go to Annexus V assay, which we will use to assess the apoptotic induction. So after the MTT assay, cells were washed and stained with annexin V FIBC, and propionium iodide, and the stained cells will be analyzed by flow cytometry to detect apoptotic cells. And then we will use statistical analysis for...
Sorry, go to your time is up. Thank you for your presentation. Sorry kung ano ba ang may now ask the questions for 5 minutes.
Okay, I'd like to begin with, so you're going to be testing it on breast cancer cells. Where will you be sourcing these cells?
So we have this, we saw this service po on University of the Philippines, Diliman, where they will provide the breast cancer cells for us for 15K per like one cell line po. And then we will also be the one to perform the MTT assay for us, as well as the annexing the assay.
Okay, so maybe it might be helpful to discuss that in terms of the ethical, like the ethics of using breast cancer cells, especially since it's live cells. But maybe discuss the overall source of them, just to ensure that it's an ethical experiment overall.
Oh, it's we're going to be using cell lines also. It's not going to be like actual live cells. That's why we chose to use cell lines.
Okay. And secondly, do you think that your experimental design, so from what I understand, you're going to be extracting the material from your SARSAP, and then you're going to be testing it on the cells. How can you ensure that there are no differences in terms of in vitro and in vivo, or like within, let's say, your cell samples and inside, let's say, an actual person?
We're discussing this po under like in like a laboratory. So of course it's gonna be in vitro where like it's all ano lang po. Like there's no outside things na nakaka-affect po. Mga external things po na makaka-affect. So there's really no way. Pero we're testing this lang po. So for a probability na magamit pa po yung ating SARS soap in the near future for more researchers to use as a reference lang.
Oh, so it's like a stepping stone into
Yes.
further research. Okay. Well, last question: how will you extract the extract from your SARS-CoV? Like, what's the exact? Or do you have like an exact procedure for this extraction?
So of course, as you can see, the source of it needs chloride. So what we're first gonna do is that we're gonna blend it in the blender for it to be like very tiny, and then we're gonna mash it up po. And then we're gonna put like our ethanolic extract there, and then we're gonna mix it po. And then we're gonna leave it in like our refrigerator for a few days. And then saka pa lang po natin siya matatawag na extract, and then saka pa lang po natin siya magagamit for the MTT.
Okay. So I think what you're extracting are the terpenes and the phenolic parts of the SARS-CoV. How can you ensure that that your procedure won't destroy or cause it to react into other forms?
Well, we have to make sure during the extraction process po na wala po talaga outside or external things na makaka-apekto po talaga to maintain the ethical design po para wala po ibang makaka-apekto, and to make sure that all our results are going to be because of our plan in the first.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I just have a question. So initially, I think you're using Realino now, right? But I think you started off with a different species in mind, correct? Because I think the title was going to be Protowali. So why did you change it?
We changed our plan to have more significance. Since Guyabano is also seen in the Philippines, it will be easier to access instead of the other plans we have in mind.
Okay, so it would be nice if you could also point out that, like Guyabano, how much we have in the Philippines, things like that, just to further emphasize why you chose that plan. Okay, and siguro one last comment na lang, or question. So I think it was mentioned that you were going to do this in a laboratory, but did you research on? So I think Mr. Ong elaborated on the ethical concerns, but my concern, I guess, is more on did you research on the biohazard safety level that is required for this kind of experiment? Handles breast cancer cells.
It would be biohazard 1 lang po because it is breast cancer cells, but I believe that as students we're not really allowed to actually just do the procedures ourselves, so we need our help from experts po talaga. So whether we do it in UP or somewhere else, we're still going to need a help from professionals because it's still biohazard.
I think in the source that I'm looking at, it's actually level 2. And because it's level 2, that's why you need to do a laboratory because students are really qualified to handle beyond the 1. Okay? And that's why you need to do yung laboratory. Pero just so that I want to just see if you're aware. So first of all, the qualifications of the scientist is 1. The second is what are the things that are needed in order to prevent the safety or prevent any hazardous things from happening when the researchers do your study in the laboratory. So in handling biohazard safety level 2, okay, or things like that, what are things that the researchers must do in order to prevent the spread of the potentially harmful things?
I think the most important thing that we must do as researchers, since it does have biohazards, we must follow the instructions given ng mga professionals. And we must follow the instructions of young professionals and will guide us since they are more credible in this area. And then after we are done with our experiment we must dispose of it properly to ensure that it won't spread any hazardous material around folks.
Okay, so yes, you did good on the disposal. Okay, but I think some things that you might want to also check: PPE. Okay, full PPE, including lab coat, eye protection, face shield, even including the laboratory having self-locking doors. It cannot be a completely open laboratory than what we have in our school. Dapat nag-lock yung door, primarily because of the danger that it will present itself. As you know, cancer cells are not really something that you would like to handle. Okay, I think that's something that I could go on and on, but I'll just to keep it short. Siguro also put a part in your research that discusses both the ethics as well as the biohazard safety level of handling cancer cells. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Group 2, for the presentation. Thank you to our panelists for asking the questions. You guys should a round of applause for them.
Actually, I'd just like to add something to Sir Arias's first question on why we chose SARSOP. We found a good source from a Malaysian study by Ismail that states that SARSOP actually has cytotoxic potency. It basically means that SARSOP does have the ability to kill the cancer cells because its phytochemicals inhibit mitochondrial complex 1, which breaks ATP synthesis. This means that it just breaks the ATP synthesis within the mitochondria of the cancer cells. So this allows for more targeted attacks within cancer cells only without damaging the healthy cells. Thank you.
Yeah, good. It would be nice if you also put that into your your paper as well as your presentation, the justification for the SARS-CoV. Okay, so presence in the Philippines, you mentioned that, as well as yung potency niya for eliminating cancer cells.
Let's give a round of applause. Thank you. Last but not least, let us present our final group, Group 6, which consists of Howard Cole, Anton Estrada, Katina Lim, and Anika Uy.
Hello, hello, my test.
Hello.
Group 6. You guys good? You guys good to go? Good. Group 6, you may now start your presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Anton Estrada.
And I am Katina Lim, and we are the presenters of Group 6.
Well, actually, we're only the human presenters because our two other group mates apparently identified themselves as termites.
Let us give a round of applause to our termites.
Good morning, I am Howard Todd Jr.
Good morning, I am Anika Uy.
And our research title is Designing a Biomimetic Home with Natural Ventilation Inspired by Termite Nests to Reduce Energy Consumption from Mechanical Ventilation.
And without further ado, let us begin the presentation.
Now, why is our research important? That is because our country is undergoing an energy crisis, specifically the expected depletion of Milampaya gas field by the year 2027. And this gas field happens to be 30% of Luzon's energy. And because of that, the government encourages minimizing of the energy consumption. However, it continues to rise over the years because of the continuous usage of high consuming devices such as air cons. Next slide, please. And a solution to this is biomimicry, and this is the practice of taking inspiration from nature and applying it on architectural designs in order to create sustainable solutions. And through that, our research investigates for a solution to the current problem.
While previous research has mostly focused on applying biomimetics to large buildings, it hasn't really been explored how these techniques can be applied to smaller houses. This is the research gap that we aim to target. And as such, our research question is, can a biomimetic house inspired by termites' nest provide ample ventilation and thermal comfort to its occupants?
So to start, the review of related literature. Termite nest. So termite nest has the ability to control and regulate the internal temperature of the mounds. This is due to the fact that they have these central chambers and pores all around it. So the purpose of the central chambers is to let the internal air go out, and for the pores, let the external and fresh air to go in, resulting to have natural ventilation and of course constant airflow all throughout the mound. So next slide please. Biomimicry in architecture is basically biology and engineering at the same time, and it has been increasing in recent years. And sample of this was the Zimbabwe Eastgate Center. It was proven that it reduces 37% to identical structures around the area.
Moving on to natural ventilation, it's a system in which little to no mechanic air conditioning systems are used to circulate and regulate the air's temperature, thus reducing energy consumption. Aspects that can be incorporated into the house design is the solar chimney, window orientation, as well as having larger openings. Next slide, please. We move on to the conceptual framework of our sustainable house design, the energy consumption in a biomimetic home inspired by termites' nest with natural ventilation. Firstly, we focus on the aspects of termite nests and natural ventilation that we will incorporate into our house design, such as the large ducts, central chimney, and pores for the termite nest respectively. And for natural ventilation, we will focus on the window orientation as well as the solar chimney. And these aspects will be incorporated into our house design as seen in our floor plan, windows, walls, as well as our roof. And then we will consider the factors in natural ventilation such as the wind speed, wind direction, as well as the temperature. And we will then test this in energy consumption through computational fluid dynamics, and then later on in energy analysis, we will get the energy consumption, and from there we can get the natural ventilation effectiveness. Moving on to our methodology, for the first house design, we focus on aspects such as the wind direction. We incorporated this because of the effectiveness of natural ventilation. So for wind direction in the Philippines, specifically for the geographic location, wind direction usually goes in northeast and southwest in Quezon City, Philippines, respectively. And it is a rectangle two-story home that aims to improve natural ventilation through stack ventilation. Specific aspects of termite nest structures include the mount structure. Specifically in the mount structure for warmer climates, for termite nests in warmer climates, their mount structure is usually taller and slimmer, which is incorporated into the house design by having a two-story home. And there is also a central chamber in termite nests, which connects all of the smaller chambers. This was incorporated into our house design in the stairs in the middle of the home. And as for the pores, they were incorporated in the form of windows. As for natural ventilation effectiveness, we also wanted to add with the window size and types. More so specifically, for the type of window, we will plan on using a casement side hung type of window according to previous research, and we will also use solar chimney and modify our roof design in order to have better airflow around the entire house.
So for our second house design, we decided to take a more complex and dramatic approach where we aim to embody the four major aspects of termite mounts into our design. So first of all, if you look at the top left diagram, you can see that not just the windows, but there's also an opening above the windows which allows air to continuously flow in and out of the building. This simulates how there are different sized pores inside the termite mound. And as you can see, the walls are slanted because this takes advantage of the shearing forces, which allows more air to flow inside of the windows rather than just a flat-faced wall. And the second aspect is how the chambers inside a termite mound are all interconnected with each other. So as you can see above the door, there is also another passageway. So even if the doors are closed, air can still flow freely from one room to another. This can of course be closed when privacy is concerned. Termite mounds, at least some of them, have fungus combs which heat the air, causing it to rise up into a central chamber, which causes a vacuum underneath which pulls cooler air in. This is simulated by the small mini fans which facilitate the flow of air, especially in environments with little to no wind. Lastly, there is a central staircase which serves as the central chamber. This leads to an opening to the roof, which can be seen later, which allows hot air to escape. Like a termite mound, this causes a vacuum underneath which pulls cooler air in, allowing air to flow continuously. So as you can see, there's the solar chimney is up there, and in the bottom diagrams you can see the expected flow of air. In the left is the expected flow of air when the air is only coming from one side, and on the right is when it's coming from multiple sides. As you can see, at least it is expected that all parts of the house will be able to receive appropriate airflow. So after we finish with our 3D computer assisted designs, we'll move on to testing. So first of all is the computational fluid dynamics, or CFD for short. This is aimed at simulating the different properties of airflow. So we'll be using the SimScale software. It provides a multitude of different models for different purposes, but the two that we're concerned about are the incompressible model and the convective heat transfer model. The first one aims at simulating the flow or speed of air inside the building. And the second one, as the name suggests, simulates the heat inside the building. External factors are set at different levels. However, the mean will be at 2 meters per second of wind speed and a temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, which is roughly around the external factors that can be found here in the Metro Manila region. So after we have tabulated these data, we can compare them to our standards, which will be mentioned later. But before that, we'll move on to our energy analysis.
So for the energy analysis is really crucial for this research study because this is where we can see if this is really efficient and really energy saving. So at first, we need the floor plan that will automatically create a 3D structure using the software Thermas Plus. And after that, we need to put the HVAC systems and set the specific consumption of it. After that, we need to choose the specific geological location, which is here in Quezon City, that will be based on the Metinorm database that will be provided by the software. And it can automatically analyze to color-coded, which makes it more analysis and can be seen if it's efficient or not.
Thank you, Luke, for your presentation. Your time is now up. We will now have the panelists asking questions. Majorem, your panelists will now be able to ask questions for panelists.
Thank you. This is an interesting topic. I really like the architecture emphasis, and I like biomimicry. It's something that it's used to design quite a lot of things right now. And I commend your group for going down this field. And I also like the fact that you have these simulations. Okay, so Energy Plus, those are one of those things that could also simulate the performance of certain architectural designs on heat. So it's very good that you're going into that. Okay, so one question that I have, did you consider the material that is used for construction of the houses and its impact on its heat protection?
It wasn't mentioned because we run out of time, but we'll be using mostly concrete for the structure because concrete has a high heat mass index which allows it to store more heat and dissipate it faster, especially at night. So this allows the building to cool down faster while also making it cooler throughout the day in general.
Okay, so you are using concrete. Are there things that you're going to input in the concrete as well, or additives that would impact the impact the performance?
In order to narrow down our research, we decided to focus mainly on the house design itself, not really into the materials that are being used to build the structure.
Okay, sige. So I think that was going to be what you're going to present next, right? The material used. So I'll just leave it at that in terms of the concrete. Tapos, did you also consider things like the size of the openings, the doors, the windows, and how this might impact the heat?
Yes, especially in the first, actually in both designs, you can see that there are measurements. I think they were just small, but especially for the second design, we plan on consulting actual architects to be able to get their input before we actually finalize the design and turn it into a 3D model.
Okay, usually when it comes to engineering, these you don't just put parang random sizes of windows or doors or openings. That is really calculated just so that it's the correct amount of opening that will go for a certain heat performance that you're trying to aim for. Okay, kasi I think the comparable thing that I'm taking a look at here is it's good that you're using the thermite foam or things like that, but you can also take a look at other architectural styles like brutalist buildings. Okay, so very heavy on concrete. I think one example, if you come from the junior high school, the ITC, notice that it has very little, very little windows, and it's really mostly concrete. And if you notice, even if the aircon is not working, it manages to keep it cool just because of the minimal openings. Okay. Tapos, are you also going to make comparisons in terms of the cost compared to traditional architecture? Kasi if you're going to implement something like this, which probably will demand a bit more concrete, wouldn't that have implications implications on the cost?
It's not necessarily on the materials, but from the standards we're going to use, you'll calculate for the total energy consumption of our model and compare it to the average total energy consumption of residential houses, and that will be our basis.
Here's the thing, okay, I appreciate that you're going to compare energy consumption between traditional and this one. But think of it this way, yung traditional, or yung mga traditional houses, expected na it will consume a bit more energy compared to this. Okay, but if you're going to produce this kind of house with greater cost of materials, wouldn't that offset the advantages it would get in savings for energy?
That's why we have two different house designs. So the first one is mostly for the practicality while still including aspects of the termite mound, while the second one is more of how far we can go with mimicking termite mounds. But we aim to find like a middle ground between these two ideas through the help of actual architects who have credible, who have credentials.
Yeah, siguro, yun na lang ang suggestion ko. Maybe you could have something like a cost-benefit ratio. Na, okay, this one will give you more energy savings, but does it do enough savings to justify probably higher cost of materials? Because I'm expecting with more concrete and less openings, you're probably going to spend a little bit more compared to traditional. Okay, so maybe that's an analysis that you do.
On my end, I'd just like to, number one, I'd like to comment on your presentation. Did you make the drawings, the illustrations?
Yes.
Okay, that really shows the effort on your end to represent your overall models. One thing I'd like to maybe add or maybe suggest, maybe you can evaluate the types or the additives, not additives, the parts of your house compared to traditional architecture, or maybe architecture that's here in the Philippines. For example, I noticed a chimney. Is that a feasible thing to add to structures or new buildings here in the country if you want to localize your study? Because it might not be feasible, maybe the design might not work so much with our weather, maybe the typhoons might affect it. So I'd like to maybe ask in the group in general, do you plan to localize it? Is this a study that you want to focus on here?
Yes, as I mentioned before po, the external factors that we will input in our CFD simulations are based on factors found here in Metro Manila, which is more or less 2 meters per second of wind speed, especially in suburban areas, and temperature of more or less around 30 degrees, which is 30 degrees Celsius, which is more or less what you'd find around in the day. And for the weather, that is where we will also consult an actual architecture. We will ask if this is feasible for the weather, or will there be times where rain can enter, and what can we add or improve upon the design to make it more weatherproof, especially considering the intense weather here in the country.
Maybe just to additionally suggest something, if you can maybe evaluate existing architecture and see if you can find like evidence of the windows, maybe a gap over the window, and then use that to evaluate your overall building. I guess a point of comparison. It might help give your research some more additional statistics.
Just to add to that point, if you look at the traditional house, like the houses in Vegan, okay, how a lot of them have openings, okay, na pwede kong i-close. And actually, senior high is a bit recent, but if you go to again junior high, they actually have openings in the roof for airflow to come in. That was at the time na we didn't feel the need. 1950s, parang aircon wasn't really justifiable. But so maybe it would be nice to research on traditional Philippine architecture to improve the ventilation. Pero very good job. I really enjoyed the interesting topic that you had.
Does anyone have any more questions that you might want to ask? Or would you like to add input to anything that was said so far?
Are there any questions that I can answer? My groupmates already answered everything.
Yeah, if there it doesn't have to be too many questions. If we're mostly really suggesting at this point, and I think that's a good sign. It's a very good topic. It's mostly commendations and suggestions. Okay, so maybe comparisons with Philippine architecture and material, if it's high cost benefit compared to traditional architecture.
Insights. This.
I want to hear a question to answer because I would I humbly accept the suggestion.
Okay, then, so may hindi na discuss na earlier about the specific standards, comparisons, can you please explain those? Wala na tayong time to explain those.
And you put the standard. So basically, all of these are given that these were the sources of all of these were supposed to be based on Metro Manila, specifically here in Quezon City. These are the average energy consumptions that can be used to compare to a normal structure of a house that hopefully would do better in terms of energy consumption and airspeed and the airflows of the whole structure. These are just the standards that the height of these ceilings and the second story is like the minimums for it. So yeah.
Sige, suggestion na lang. Aside from yung energy, I think you could also take a look at yung formula for heat loss. Okay? Heat loss is important, so that's heat is equal to yung parang even the wall area is added there, diba? That's change of temperature. So that's one formula that you could look at. And then National Building Code of the Philippines. I think there's something a bit more updated that you could use. The Green Building Code of the Philippines of 2015. So maybe that's something different.
Oh, and ano rin pala, we weren't able to mention a while ago, but with regards to the heat, what was that again? The heat loss. Another side effect of having slanted buildings is that slanted walls is that they increase the surface area. And the more surface area equals more faster heat dissipation or heat loss, especially at night when the temperature goes down. This can also be seen in the East Gate Center in Zimbabwe, as Howard mentioned. If you look at the building, it has a lot of surfaces that allow heat to dissipate faster.
If it's slanted like this, wouldn't that mean it's more perpendicular to the sun's rays? Mas natatamaan pa ng sun yung
There is actually ledges above every floor that provides shade from the sun. Ayun po, makikita niyo po doon. And also, while these parts, then they can be hit by more sun, but there are also parts that can be hit less, so they like equalize each other out.
Thank you, panelists, for your input. Let's give a round of applause to Group 6, and let's give a round of applause to all the RPCs of this batch. You guys are all done. Congratulations. Mix, is there anything else, or we can just... Okay. So let's end this off with a closing prayer, guys. The Father, Son, and Spirit. Dear God, we thank you for guiding us throughout our presentations and for granting us a fruitful learning experience. May we keep in mind and heart the feedback and comments of our panelists so that we may proceed aptly with our research. As we end this session, we ask for your blessings as we return to our homes. Let everyone get the rest they need, and may we always keep you in our hearts and never separate ourselves from you. We ask this through your Son, Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Congratulations, guys, and we are officially finished for today. Thank you, panelists.
For panelists, we'll resume at 1 p.m. You may, we'll have lunch at 12 pa po. Medyo mas maaga tayo natapos at the moment. Siguro po maybe we can wait for we will release the grades po kasi within the day, within today also. So if it's possible for the grades to be tabulated. So, but for 11 Realino, syempre, yung grades nyo, uwi na kayo? Yeah, I will. Yeah, so stay. We'll just wait for you. But for the others, thank you so much to our hosts, our technicals. Special shout out to 11 Suji for sharing some of their resources also to 11 Realino. At least we know better na for Monday, for batch. Okay? Sige. For lunch po, panelists box sa grade 11 workroom na lang at around 12. So, you may rest and siguro like... And then for the rest, if you want to watch the 11 Suji presentations, you may do so. Pwede naman kayo lumabas to take your lunch. Sir Regis, may nagpaalam sa akin or so whatever. But again, deliveries are not allowed. Only for us. Okay? Sige.
Mix, yung live stream din po. Mamaya sa Suji, naka-live stream din po.
Naka-live stream din. Naka-live stream ngayon.
Opo, bali sa Suji. Opo.
Hello.
I'll send it.
Announce it.
Oh yeah. Sige.